They say somewhere out there, there's a pen that can work in zero gravity, at extreme temperatures, and even underwater. They say this pen can write on almost any surface, or if you turn it upside down, or when your surroundings are heated up to 570 degrees Fahrenheit. They say NASA spent millions, or probably billions of dollars, and almost a decade to develop such a pen. The problem with ballpoint pens in space is that they don't work in the conditions of weightlessness. The ink can't flow to the ball normally since gravity doesn't affect it. Instead, pressure is created in the ink reservoir and pens start leaking. Some time ago, NASA used pencils, but wooden pencils were considered to be a fire hazard in most spaceships. All because, at that time, the atmosphere inside them was 100% oxygen. The need for a super pen was obvious. But whatever the rumors claim, NASA did not create such a pen, spending a fortune on the research. Its development was sponsored by Paul C. Fisher of the Fisher Pen Company based in Chicago. He spent over $1 million and almost 10 years to make a pressurized ink cartridge. It was supposed to allow space pens to function in zero gravity and other extreme conditions. Eventually, they got a pen that could write at a temperature of minus 30 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really impressive, isn't it? The pen was patented in 1966, and 1 year later, after conducting several thorough tests, NASA started to provide Apollo astronauts with such pens. Interestingly, the rumors about NASA spending an insane amount of money on the development of space pens have been circulating for decades. They have been debunked many times, but they appear again and again. Many sci-fi movies can make you believe that everything happening in space is accompanied by some kind of a sound effect, which is a totally false misconception. In space, no one will hear you scream. You know why? There's no air in space. It's an almost perfect vacuum. And sound waves don't travel through a vacuum. They can't reach your eardrums and make them vibrate, sending signals to your brain. But it's a good thing, especially for astronauts on spacewalks. If not for the quietness of space, they would be constantly overwhelmed by the noise of solar storms. Here's another one. All comets have beautiful long tails. It's nothing but a popular misconception. In reality, comets are very difficult space bodies to spot. They usually spend large amounts of time far away from stars. There, in the darkness of space, they remain rather inactive and completely frozen. Comets only get tails once they come close to a star. That's when they start warming up. This process makes them form some kind of a cloudy atmosphere, which is called a coma, and a distinctive tail. The tail always points away from the star that influences the comet. It happens because the tail gets blown in the opposite direction by solar radiation and solar winds. That's why the tail can often be in front of the comet, not trailing after it. Now, let's look at a light year. This very notion makes us believe we speak about time here. But in reality, light years measure distance. NASA's definition of a light year goes like this. The total distance that a beam of light moving in a straight line travels in a year. And since light moves at a speed of 186,000 miles per second, a light year equals almost 6 trillion miles. Hey, do the math. Now, people often believe that in space, you experience zero gravity. Hence the weightlessness astronauts feel on the International Space Station. But that's not exactly true. Gravity is one of the most important forces that exist in the universe. Thanks to it, the Moon can orbit Earth, and the Sun doesn't float away from our home Milky Way galaxy. But the astronauts on the ISS experience not full-fledged, but microgravity, which means very small gravity. The gravity on the space station is only 10% weaker than the gravity on Earth's surface, but astronauts are constantly in free fall. The spacecraft, the people inside, and all the objects aboard keep falling forward, not down, but around our planet, following a specific orbit. And since they're all falling together, the crew and the stuff inside seem to be floating. That's why astronauts can move things as heavy as hundreds of pounds with their fingertips. And even though microgravity is often called zero gravity, they're very different things. Now, it may seem as if the sun is always on fire. At least that's what it looks like in pictures. But in reality, our star is a giant ball of gas. Hey, I can relate. Nuclear reactions happening in its core at all times makes the sun burn. Every second, hundreds of millions of tons of hydrogen are converted into almost as much helium. During this process, huge amounts of energy are released as gamma rays. Then these rays turn into light. In other words, the sun does emit blinding light and incredible heat. But it's not actually on fire, because no oxygen is involved in the process. A human can explode if they get into open space without a spacesuit. Well, contrary to popular belief, taking off a spacesuit during a spacewalk won't be as dramatic as it's often pictured in movies. A person will lose consciousness due to a lack of oxygen after 15 seconds of being in outer space without protection. Before it happens, the person should breathe out as much air as possible. Otherwise, this oxygen will damage their lungs from the inside. Then, without the protection of the spacesuit, which is like a mini spaceship, the pressure inside their body will drop. This will cause even more serious troubles. And even though this person definitely won't burst, they won't want to stay outside for too long. Black holes are giant, scary cosmic vacuum cleaners, they say. But in reality, black holes are more like fly traps. They don't look for things to munch on. Instead, they sit out there quite passively. Only when a star comes too close does a black hole spring into action. Even so, only those space objects that cross a certain border get ripped apart. If the Sun were suddenly replaced with a black hole, Earth's orbit wouldn't change. At the same time, Earth's temperature would be different. There would be no solar wind, and no magnetic storms created by the Sun would affect our planet. And let's say the black hole that replaced the Sun had the same mass as our star. Then, according to the law of physics, Earth would have to come very close to get pulled into this black hole. Now, the dark side of the moon myth was debunked more than 50 years ago. And still, not everyone knows that this dark side is simply part of the Earth's natural satellite that faces away from our planet. By no means is it darker than any other region of the moon, and sunlight falls equally on all sides of the satellite. It only seems dark because we never see this side of the moon from Earth, all because of the phenomenon known as tidal locking. Over billions of years, let me say that again, billions of years, the gravitational connection between our planet and its natural satellite has changed their orbits. The speed at which they move has also become different. And since Earth is way bigger than the Moon, the satellite's rotation was gradually slowing down, until at one point it reached the point of balance. And now, it takes the Moon the same time to make a full rotation around its axis and to fully orbit around Earth. Now, you might have heard people referring to Venus as Earth's twin. It's true that both these planets are of almost the same size. They have similar mass and composition. The surface gravity on Venus is 91% of that on Earth. So, if your weight was 100 pounds on our planet, on Venus you'd weigh 91 pounds. And still, calling these planets twins is a step too far. The atmosphere on Venus is 100 times thicker than that on Earth. Plus, its surface temperatures are insanely high, up to 850 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot enough to melt lead or burn up your pizza. Venus has no water oceans or any life forms. It also rotates backward compared to all other planets of the solar system, including Earth. By the way, another myth claims that Mercury is the hottest planet in the solar system. After all, it's the closest planet to the Sun, but Venus is actually hotter. Asteroids strike Earth much more often than people tend to believe. But most of these collisions aren't history-changing extinction events. Most of them go completely unnoticed. Most asteroids that approach our planet are qualified as small, near-Earth objects. They usually burn up in Earth's atmosphere before they even have a chance to wipe out life off the surface of the planet. Not that they're big enough to do that. And still, around 40 to 80 tons of space debris fall on Earth every year. Most of this debris is tiny asteroids, also called bolides. They're usually no larger than 65 feet in diameter. That's small? Yeah, says so right here. Okay.
A human year is not the same as a dog year. You might have thought that dogs age 7 times faster than we do, but it's not that simple. A dog that's been around for 1 year is, in fact, already 31. It will most likely even have its own little puppies running around. But here's where it gets tricky. 2 human years don't necessarily mean that your dog is 62 either. Your buddy will need to be around 4 in our years before it reaches old age. A 4-year-old dog will be 50, but a 7-year-old dog will be 62, and an 8-year-old dog will only be 64. So, they age faster, but also slower and slower as time passes by. The next time you're celebrating your best bud's birthday, be sure to put lots of candles on the cake and buy even more presents than you normally would. A common misconception is that dogs are colorblind. They're not, but they don't see color exactly as we do. They have trouble distinguishing between their reds and greens. It all just looks like a mash of gray, brown, blue, and even yellowy tones. That's because their eyes lack one of 3 photoreceptors needed to perceive colors fully. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Wrong. Because of their old age, they might need more persistence from you, but it's not impossible. The key here is to be as positive as you can. If you see they're not feeling up to it right now, that's okay. Let them rest, and in a little bit, you can pick the training session back up. Reward still needs to be a big part of the whole ordeal. After Max successfully speaks, give it its favorite biscuit. Then, it'll speak on command whenever you ask it to. That dog has shoes on. They might seem unnecessary, but today the weather's 90 degrees outside. Imagine walking with your bare feet on asphalt during this heat. You'd feel like you're stepping on lava, and so would your pup. Some dogs are better equipped to handle different weather conditions, but dog shoes can prevent your little buddy from harming its paws. It's the same during winter. When it's freezing cold, you wouldn't just walk around without a jacket on, so make sure your buddy is warm too. Dogs with a lot of fur don't need to get their hair cut to feel lighter. They have what's called an undercoat. In winter, it gets thicker, which gives your buddy an extra layer of protection from the cold. Then, during springtime, your dog will shed some of its fur. It's that same undercoat that will keep your dog comfy during hotter days. When you shave a dog's fur, the new one coming in might get curly or entangled. It might just be better to leave it as is. You can also find different alternatives to keep them cool. Keep it in the shade when they're out, and always bring a bottle of cold water with you, so your buddy's always refreshed. At home, you can put damp towels for them to lie on. If you have a garden, you can also turn its sprinklers on and let Max run free. It'll exercise and have lots of fun. Not all dogs are great swimmers, but all dogs love swimming. If yours can't swim all that well, it might be because it has a bulky chest and a large flat head. In fact, it might not even be able to stay afloat. Get it a swimming vest designed especially for dogs. Some people might say a slightly open window is enough to keep a dog in the car. This isn't true, because after spending just a few minutes in a heated or cold car might mean severe health implications for your best friend. Some states even let you let a dog out of the car if you see it in there, to let it breathe. If your dog can't stand mail carriers, it might be because it's trying to protect you. They bark because they're trying to alert you, their pack leader, that the vicious mail carrier is coming. You can fix this by introducing them to one another. This way, your dog will recognize them as a friend and not a villain. Unlike you, your dog isn't yawning because it's sleepy. Yawning is a way for them to show anxiety. If it doesn't like cats and there's one around, it could yawn. Or maybe there's a new person in the house and Max isn't feeling comfortable in their presence. Or you take your dog to a play date, but they're not getting along. Max keeps yawning because he's getting upset. Yawning is also a way to show you it's running out of patience. It might be time for both of you to leave. Dogs eat grass when they're sick, but this isn't always the case. Catching your dog eating grass when you've been talking to your friend for way longer than you should have probably means it's just bored. They do it to be rebellious too, or just because it's fun. It won't be a problem if the grass isn't treated. Either way, just make sure it doesn't eat too much of it. Otherwise, head out to the vet. Even a little bit of chocolate is poisonous for your pup and should be kept hidden away at all times. This includes cocoa powder and baker's chocolate. This applies to cats too. If you suspect that your pet has eaten a large amount of chocolate, take it to the vet's office immediately. Well-trained dogs will do what they're supposed to and obey commands, but don't think they'll never bite you. It can act out of emotion. Imagine your dog scared. You've put it in an uncomfortable situation with lots of new faces. This has been going on for a while, and Max isn't able to control his emotions anymore. So, a new person tries to reach it to give it a pet and gets punished. Nothing harsh, but it was unexpected. Maybe it felt like it needed to be defensive. Thinking they're protecting and guarding you is another reason why a dog might bite. Or if they're feeling too intimidated by whoever it might be. You've got 2 dogs and you're about to enter your house. One of them is waiting for you in its bed. It doesn't make a big whoop about it rather than wagging its tail. The other one comes running to the door. It whimpers, jumps, and wags its whole body while running in circles around you. This doesn't mean it loves you more. It just means it's not properly trained yet. Tail wagging doesn't always mean your dog is excited. You can observe a dog's tail to understand what it's feeling. If it holds its tail high but isn't moving it, it's alert but also trying to assert its leadership. Still held high, the tail is moving now. It means the feeling's changed a bit. It's alert but happy. It's still trying to show it's the boss here. But at least it's feeling excited now. When its tail is between the legs, your dog's feeling afraid. Or, if there's an alpha dog around, it might mean your buddy admits its leadership. A tail that's held straight out means the dog is taking in new information, feeling the room. It's not reacting though, it'll stay neutral while doing this. If a dog's tail is wagging fast, it means excitement. The faster they wag their tail, the more excited they are. A slow wag conveys insecurity. It might be because of another dog or person. Now, imagine your dog is wagging its entire body. You even see its hips wagging. This means it's friendly. It might happen when you're in the elevator, and it spots its best friend from the apartment complex. The worst wag of them all is an extremely fast vertical wagging tail. When doing this, your dog can be mean to others. It might be feeling territorial over you. It's best to remove yourself from the situation. If your dog's tail is wagging to the right, it means it's more relaxed. And a left wagging tail means stress.
You're going out with some friends. Good food, music, nice. You arrive, say hello to your people, and "I don't like your outfit," one of your friends shouts out. He looks about as surprised as you are. "Why is your haircut so awful?" you ask him. You slap your hands over your mouth, a little late though. "Why did you just say that?" Another friend, Jennifer, starts saying how she didn't even want to come. She thought it'd be boring. Before you can stop her, you tell her you came just to spend time with her. You like her. Uncomfortable pause. A sweet Saturday night turns into one of the most awkward moments ever. That's what you tell the waiter when she comes over to offer you more water. It's like everything that pops into your head gets shot out of your mouth instantly. Your friends feel the same way, and they all agree no more talking, in case someone else says something embarrassing. You walk down the street thinking about what happened, and notice that people around you seem kind of excited. A huge man with an epic beard and leather jacket is talking loudly on the phone. Something about how his favorite color is pink, and that he wants to become a gardener, and that he hates riding a motorcycle. A second later, he blushes a deep red, mumbles something about forgetting everything he just said, ends the call, and runs off. A woman in front of you hails a cab that's passing by. "Drive me for $10?" she asks. "Of course I will, even though I'm about to fall asleep. I don't want to drive a cab anymore." He covers his mouth too, but the damage is done. "What a wonderful, wonderful day!" shouts some guy on the other side of the street. He's wearing headphones, smiling, and clearly has no idea he just said that out loud. You ask another woman what time it is. "I don't have time to take out my phone and I don't want to," she says, and immediately apologizes. So, why is everyone being so honest? From one moment to the next, the concept of lying, or just not saying every little thing that's in your head, has disappeared. You meet your neighbor in the elevator and tell him that the rock music he plays every night is loud and just pretty lame. He tells you your shoes are always dirty. You go into your apartment, put your phone on to charge and turn on the news. The news anchor's, well, he's talking about the weather and what's going on inside his body. Apparently, he ate a burrito this morning that had been in his fridge for about a month. A hurricane is coming to the southern regions, and a thunderstorm is already raging in my stomach. The broadcast gets interrupted. Technical issues. The phone rings. It's the manager from your bank. She offers you a terrible loan. Those are her exact words. Then she says she hopes you won't be able to make the payments so that the bank can collect interest. You'll probably go bankrupt, and she'll get a year-end bonus. And then there's a few seconds of silence, a gasp, some screaming, and she hangs up. Well, that was entertaining. Just then, you dream up an awesome plan. You need to track down as many of your friends as possible. Find out what they really think about you. You're not afraid of telling the truth, but hearing it from your friends could be interesting. But finding someone to talk to isn't that easy. The streets are noticeably emptier than they were before. People aren't leaving their homes. What if they say something terrible right in someone's face? Some people are just shy. Others are afraid of losing all their friends. In this new world, nobody can hide their true feelings. The entertainment industry goes into a meltdown. Video game companies can't lie about what kind of product they're developing. If there are any glitches or bugs, the CEO just tells everyone. It's impossible to hide anything anymore. Shares go into total freefall. You watch a teaser trailer for a new game, amazing graphics, music, crazy complicated storyline, and then it suddenly cuts to a bunch of code writers telling you that, in reality, the game will look much worse. Why even buy it? The same sort of thing's happening with the movie industry. Producers and stars can't hype up their new movie if they don't actually like it. Pretty much everybody stops doing live interviews or press events. I mean, you can't release a new blockbuster that all the actors in it already said was terrible. A lot of celebrities start telling people what they really think, and it doesn't end well for anyone. But humans just don't speak their mind now. They write it too. You start to shed friends on social media, block them, tell them you're only friends with them to make you look more popular. People start making their profiles private and block you from tagging them. Online stories start writing much more honest product descriptions and online reviews. Those actually become awesome. You can really trust them. The like button gets a whole new makeover. You don't just like all your friends' photos anymore. You got to really like the photo. And if you don't, you find yourself writing comments. A lot of people start deleting their profiles. The whole world's economy becomes unstable. Shareholders and CEOs are afraid to give interviews. Share prices are all over the place. The solution? Keep silent and try not to think too much. Banks and insurance companies are closing down all over the world. Scammers are totally powerless. They just can't lie to you anymore. It's hilarious, sort of. If you're applying for a new job, bad news. You can't pad your resume anymore. The upside, though, companies tell you up front about having to work overtime and that the coffee machine in the break room brews terrible coffee. Friends quarrel with friends, couples break up, close relationships become way more tense. If you're invited to a lame party, you can't play it cool and think up an excuse. You just blurt out that you don't want to go. It's a pretty big shock to the system. You're honest to everyone, even yourself. But after a few weeks, something changes. In the beginning, you were offended when people said what they thought right to your face. But now, you realize just how silly it is. So what if someone doesn't like you? Just shrug it off. Sure, you might lose some friends, but at the same time, you'll probably gain some new ones, real friends who will have your back and will always be honest with you. Every time you tell the truth, it feels like a weight's been lifted off your shoulders. It helps people just be better. Sure, it can still be awkward, but humans seem more likely to actually solve their problems, not just pretend they don't exist. People start to treat the truth differently. Remember when you told someone they had something stuck in their teeth? It wasn't comfortable for everyone. Now, everyone's grateful for your helpful comments. People in relationships become much happier. Talking, being honest, all that makes relationships much stronger. And another really interesting thing happens. If you like someone's hair, clothes, whatever, you can just say it. Since everyone's honest now, no one will think you're being creepy or anything. And this truth thing, it makes people more healthy. Since everyone's more relaxed and confident, stress-related health problems start to disappear. People stop being lazy. Since it's impossible to look your boss in the eye and lie about working all day, you either start working harder or just quit. Everything gets much simpler. Music even becomes more beautiful. More and more artists stop being afraid of being honest in their songs, and this brings them much closer to their audience. Directors, vloggers, producers, everyone starts making content about what they actually care about. Movies become more bold, provocative, and surprising. And if you want to lose yourself in some blockbuster action movie, you'll actually be able to find out if it's any good before you watch it. What a world!